listen up. Ladies and gentlemen, listen up. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, listen up. Ladies and gentlemen, listen. Ladies and gentlemen, listen up.
Comedy studio in your ear. Comedy studio in your ear. Comedy studio in your comedy studio.
Go.
Oh my god, terrible timing for a cough.
You all right there, bud?
Welcome to the Coronavirus Studio podcast. I'm your host, Rudy Giuliani, the only podcast. Sorry, this Z-Pack they've got me on has me all discombobulated. The only podcast. I'm your host, Rudy Giuliani. Your co-host is, who do you want to be?
Who do I want to be?
Yeah. Who have you always wanted to be?
I want to be Spider-Man.
Oh, that's a good choice.
Yeah, you didn't think of that, did you?
Spider-Man. Welcome to the show, Mr. Spider-Man. I'm a big fan.
Mr. Spider-Man.
Huge fan. I love your PlayStation 4 video game. It's very well done.
Oh, thank you.
What an emotional journey you went on. With,
It was quite the
Dr.
ride.
Octopus. Yeah, it was quite the ride. Well, here we all are. Another episode of the most fun podcast in town. Everybody comes on to be a clown. Our special guest today, our first of two special guests today.
Two special guests.
Yes.
Oh, right. Don't we? I forgot who are.
We've got a special surprise cooked up for you folks that you'll hear in about 28 minutes or so. He's the owner operator of the Daily Bugle. Please welcome to the show, Mr. J. Jonah Jameson. I want pictures of Spider-Man, right?
That's the one.
What is Spider-Man's town? It's not Gotham.
It's
Queens,
New York
baby.
City.
New York City.
It's actually New York City. DC makes up cities. Marvel just uses real places.
Yeah, because Marvel's for the real ones, baby.
It's the real deal.
And according to DC's, they have three famous cities. I'd say they have Gotham, which is Batman's hometown, Metropolis, which is Superman's hometown, and then they have Midway, which is somewhere in the Midwest. In the very stupid Batman vs Superman movie, we found out that Metropolis and Gotham are like literally like across like a lake from each other. Did anyone see that?
It'd be like Manhattan and Queens.
Basically, it revealed that
I
these
have
two
not seen that,
gigantic
no.
mega cities are like so close to each other. It took.
And yet, if you've seen Justice League, they need a whole fucking space station to hang out together.
Right. Have not seen Justice League.
Justice
about
League is
Riverdale?
the best. It is probably the best DC Universe like creation.
Riverdale is where Archie and his friends hang out.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also DC superheroes, right?
Yeah, they're
Are
also
they?
comic books. So
Aren't they?
Are they DC?
I don't think so.
I don't know. I used to like those Archie comic books a lot, and this Riverdale show seems like it has none of what appealed to me about Archie and his friends, which was fun times hanging out and eating hamburgers. This Riverdale show seems like it's Twin Peaks for teens.
Eating hamburgers.
Jughead, he ate all the hamburgers. Rick surely remembers that. You must have loved Archie as a kid back when it was.
Oh
weird.
yeah.
Oh no, you got it too.
Michael Keaton has a terrific bit about Bazooka Joe and
Michael Keaton.
You mean
No, that was
Batman
Archie.
Michael
Batman?
Keaton?
yeah. Was it Archie?
Bazooka
Yeah, no,
Joe
I'm thinking
was the
of
comics.
Bazooka Joe instead of
Mm.
Archie. Yeah,
Yeah, he was the bubblegum man.
yeah.
Yeah, never got into him. Too bad for my teeth. What's up, everyone? Did we get any feedback on last week's episode? Because I sure didn't.
I've gotten a couple of messages.
Oh, good. I hope they were supportive in nature.
They were supportive in nature.
Yeah.
Good.
I got a message and a call from our next guest.
Ah, well, we'll have
Which
to
was
talk
very
about it
supportive.
then.
You got a little bit of feedback on our episode with Mike Kaplan, though.
Ooh.
Oh, really?
Let's hear it.
Another Boston podcaster, Anthony Massa from Muckville, did a whole review of that
Are
episode.
you fucking shitting me?
He did.
Did a review of our review.
He did.
We have to have this guy on now? What did he say?
We don't have to have him on, but he would love to be on.
Was it a nice review or was it...
He was more so critical of Mike Kaplan than us.
Hmm.
And he did an in-depth review of our intro, actually, now that I think of it.
You know, I guess this is the price of putting yourself out there, but I gotta say I don't like it.
Would you say that was a bad review?
I guess any review is a bad review. I want this podcast to have 1,000,000 listeners, but also to exist in a bubble where nobody says what they feel about it ever, because it could
That might
provoke
be tough.
emotions in me. But I guess that's the price of fame, isn't it, fellas? Well, thank you.
I think that's
Anthony.
what it takes to be the best, or
see.
the only, as we call it.
Yeah, right.
What? And you get into the whole reality TV show sort of idea of how much of yourself do you give out there just because you want the attention?
I would say with this podcast, too much. Too much.
Yeah, look. Believe it or not, I've actually toned down a lot of those tendencies
Oh, yeah?
in myself. Oh, yeah. If anyone wants to, they're behind a paywall, but they can listen to my old podcast from New York. It's called That's the Show with Danny. You can find it. I'm not going to tell you where you can find it because I hate saying the name of the website.
It's called That's the Show.
That's the Show with Danny is the full title.
What's
And,
what's the website? I'm gonna link it in the comments.
Nah.
Well, I'm gonna
You're gonna
Google
have
it.
You can Google it. That's fine. And I shared a lot of myself on there.
I
Too
love
much,
the idea
some
that-
would say.
Love the idea that those hosts are going, wow, we're still making money.
The
off
first thing that came
Yeah.
up is on
I know
you-
I'm like Dave Chappelle, aren't I?
it."
the first thing that came up is a link from apple.com that says the best of That's the
Oh,
Show
yes.
with Danny.
That was my album I put out in an act of extreme hubris 4 years ago.
I'm
I put
gonna
out
I'm
my-
gonna read through the track titles. Let's see. The
Okay.
introduction, another introduction featuring Tom Sharpling,
All right,
Zodiac,
buddy Tom.
porn industry, slut shaming, porn name. Wow, you really went. That's
Yeah.
a whole section right there.
Oh yeah.
Adam and Eve, Eye Opener, Played,
Theme.
Stomach Baby featuring Catherine Heller,
Yep.
Pope John Paul II,
Catherine Heller's cool. Shout out to
Uh,
Catherine Heller.
The Boxer, Running of the B and then
Bullshit.
expletive. No, oh, okay.
Yes, of the bullshit.
I was
Running the
gonna
bullshit.
guess that so wrong. Girl Scouts, Everything Bagels. I could see how those two can go from one to the other. Petition, Vladimir Putin. There are a lot of tracks on here. I'm starting to realize.
There are like 50, I think. a lot of them are
40. You 40. You
Okay.
titled the outroduction.
Yes, the introduction. This was the album. There were 25 people who listened to it before I pulled it down, where I did an episode of this podcast by myself where I played the album and did commentary talking over it. And I took it down because it was A, unlistenable, and B, too sad, according to Rosa. I was filled with contempt for my past self and the choices he made. But yeah, that's you can buy it on iTunes. I'm not going to get any of the money, but oh boy.
Wait, who gets the money?
The people whose
own it?
website I don't want to say.
Oh, okay. Then
Uh,
Then I am not gonna link it so that they don't buy it. I mean,
But if these, but yeah, who gives a shit? Put it out there. I think at its peak it made it to number 30 on the
Yeah,
iTunes
fuck it, I'll
comedy
post it.
charts for 4 minutes, and then Weird Al put out another album, shunted it right back down there. But
I
all
always
this
love
to
that.
say- Yes.
Because you see that happen all the time. Someone local, national, whatever,
Mhm,
you know, for 1 second,
mhm,
everyone buys the album and it's number one.
mhm.
I think
Well,
that's so cool
for me,
that
it was
pretty
number
much
30.
everybody gets to say, oh, it was number one on the Apple charts for a while.
mhm. And then either Jim Gaffigan or Weird Al,
Yeah.
because it's inevitably one of those two.
and we get
Yeah.
to say that we are reviewed on Muckville Radio by Anthony Massa.
Monkville Radio. Gonna have to check that out.
So what was his, what was the
Yeah.
gist of his
Yeah, give me the jizz of it.
critique?
He said that people are very mean to you, Rick, and you.
Yes, I told
you. He did
Uh-huh.
say that. He
He's just
critiqued.
sucking up to you, Rick. Go ahead.
He critiqued
Sorry.
Mike Kaplan mostly, and then mostly because like he apparently did an interview of Mike Kaplan that went very wrong for him because he was a bad interviewer. As he admitted to.
That's how I feel about Chris Gethard. I had Chris Gethard on my show, and I tried to do an improv bit where I grabbed his hand to hold it, and he said, "Don't touch me."
Yeah, I can see that going wrong. But Kaplan,
That's what you'd think would be into it.
Kaplan, you just turned on the mic. In fact, if you go to Mike Kaplan's podcast this week is with Micah Sherman, who's also a guy who started out with us.
Mhm,
Really, really good. They're old friends. They've got a couple albums out together.
mhm.
It's a really terrific, entertaining thing. And they start with Mike says hello, and Micah says greetings, and they spend the next 10 minutes
Mhm.
dissecting what does greetings mean, why is it plural, does it work as hello, and then like another 10 minutes discussing how they felt when I would say thank you to them after their set.
Wow.
It's like, no, I should be thanking you, but I am doing him. What? I don't know. It's really entertaining.
What a thrill that must be. And in fact, speaking of Mike Kaplan, his other podcast, The Faucet, he devoted a whole episode of it. I mean, it was a short one, but
The
a whole
Faucet?
episode about our podcast.
Really?
Yes.
Could I look that up on
He had
iTunes?
Recently?
kind things to say if you have it in you.
Gee, is there a link in the chat or something?
I'm gonna Google it now.
It's
Googling commencing.
Alexa, stop. I don't know what it is that I say things and my Alexa just starts piping up now.
My phone does that a lot. Anytime somebody says Google, my phone will, and it just did it. My phone will, because I have Android, so it has the Google.
But
Google Home.
Mike had very kind things to say about us in his episode. It's called The Spectacular Spider Dan is the name of it. It came out on the 24th, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, how
there
could
it is.
someone have a poor interview experience with Mike?
He did. Anthony said that it was like a long time ago when he was very bad at public speaking, so it just was an awkward interview. It's like,
Yeah,
did you see the Burt Kreischer Adam Sandler interview this year?
No.
Burt literally knew nothing about Adam and just went in blind and
How do you
fucked
know
it up.
nothing about Adam Sandler?
It was one of the most awkward interviews of all time, and he admits to it. It was so funny.
Hey, did you see Tom Segura had quite a nasty accident?
Accident?
I did not hear this.
He was he had some accident where he broke a number of bones and had to cancel shows, and he posted a picture of himself on Twitter with a big old like surgical
Oh
scar.
shit! Was it a car accident?
I think so. Maybe I didn't.
He's
look that much
he
into it.
started doing videos on his YouTube channel where where like car companies like McLaren and stuff like that give him like really nice cars, not like lend it to him just to like do video reviews of them. So I hope he didn't like. I hope he's okay, but I hope he didn't like go too fast because I saw a video where he like reviewed a Dodge Hellcat, which is like their Charger, but like souped up to go 700 miles an hour.
Yeah. I'm not really familiar with Segura, so I'm gonna take a chance to go get coffee.
No, don't do that.
Segura's incredible. I think he's one of the best comics like out there today.
He says he broke multiple bones in his leg. And then his Twitter said, you guys, Bert didn't break my ankles. We weren't playing each other when this happened. He can barely dribble. Then he says, I guess I don't need my basketball shoes anymore. And I know it sounds crazy, but it really happened. Dunking. And then the like shrug emoji. So
That's
sounds
funny.
like probably not a car accident, but certainly nasty nonetheless.
No, that's
So,
crazy. I didn't know
Comedy
about that.
Studio Podcast would like to extend its best wishes to Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer, because I'm sure he could use them.
I think Bert appreciates it.
I'm sure he does too. I think Tom is Bert's one good friend, because the other ones drug his drinks and laugh about
Well,
it.
I mean, Joe just like encourages him not
Laughs
to be
about
fat.
it.
Well, no, Joe just encourages him not to be fat and alcoholic.
Well, that's sure.
But Ari, drugs him. Which
And
is
Joe
fair.
did, to Joe's lack of credit, laugh about it.
I mean, they talked about it on the podcast. If
They
we
sure
if we
did.
talked about it on this podcast, we'd
We'd
probably
be laughing, sure.
Hey,
but Tom
we
Segura,
check out our last episode where we laughed about that too.
but that's just real life, baby. But Tom Segura, said, hey, this is bad and illegal what you did, Ari Shaffir. Ari Shaffir,
Kevin
what
Fitzgerald
character?
said he thought he got speared by an audience member at a show. No, that was what's
Jesus
Big
Christ.
J Okerson getting like tackled off stage in New York. I think that's what you're thinking of. That's Big J Okerson.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fitzgerald thinks that thought that Segura got like speared by an audience member. I don't think so.
Rick, have you ever felt it? Well, you had a stalker, so you must have felt someone. Why are you eating on the podcast? Why was you taking something? Right, you got up to get more coffee. You could have done it then.
Don't be mean to me.
Yeah, great.
I just
great.
grabbed
Thanks
a
a lot,
piece of chocolate.
Then again,
Anthony
being mean to you
Massa.
is how we get people to talk about us.
for providing Rick with that fucking ammo.
Just grabbed a piece of chocolate on my way back.
No, it's good to keep the blood sugar up.
Delicious piece of
I
chocolate.
know there's been many times. If you do comedy long enough, there's always going to be a couple times where you're like, is anyone going to stop that guy coming towards the stage?
I mean,
So have you been physically attacked?
No, but I have been in fear of it a couple of times.
What'd you do? Take a bite of chocolate and say, it's my right?
what is your if
That's where you went to for the joke? Was
I
take a bite of
know.
chocolate?
Well, because it's such a sensitive area, and you don't want to overplay it.
I think
So,
anytime
that's
like
how it was
in
saved.
anytime like there might be an altercation, I think everybody does the same thing where like they have an imaginary scenario of how they think they'll handle that situation. Rick, how do you fantasize handling an altercation like that?
Physical altercation. I have had almost no physical altercations.
But
and
like
none
everyone
since I was-
imagines doing it.
Yeah, none since I was 10.
Oh wow.
So like let's
Yeah.
say you're on stage and like you're hosting and a joke goes wrong and I was right, Kevin. Sorry.
Don't you forget it.
You're on stage, you're hosting, you tell a joke, it goes bad, and an audience member gets up and says "fuck you" and starts walking to the stage. What do you think you do?
Eli.
I would hope you would call Keith, not me.
Yeah. Security.
But you know that he usually says your name, even if it's just Brett and I working. He'll say, Eli, whoever's in the back.
Yeah. You know, I think I would fall back onto, my go-to it. I would just not break character. Like I handle all hecklers and everything. As long as you don't break character, you're okay.
But I mean, like
They're
they're
who's about to die. Me.
But I mean, like they're coming to you, like they're
Yeah,
walking
they're
up.
coming at me. Exactly. If I still can sort of like stay in character, like keep some sort of authority if I have to throw a punch or something. But to all of a sudden go like, okay, now I'm in attack mode. I think with break character.
A little bit of advice with a mic stand like the one we have, it takes only 3 seconds to unscrew it, so you get so you have the mic stand as a staff.
There is a comic who is
that
back in
weighted
Boston
base.
now.
The weighted base is too heavy to use. You need to unscrew it just to take the stick out because it's metal.
Okay.
Moved to
Good to know.
Florida for about 2 decades because at a Dick Doherty gig, he was doing the show and there's a woman sitting in front heckling and talking and all that stuff. And he picked up the mic stand and just sort of like, in his version, just sort of like, waved at her like, hey, be quiet, picking it up. Other people's stories said he just hit her in the head with the bass. But
That's
yeah,
in,
so it was
like that's
you know,
death.
I'm gonna go check out the Florida comedy scene for a couple decades.
Oh.
We gotta get out of this place.
Is this? Do I know who this is?
No,
Okay.
They moved to
I mean
Florida.
you could because he's local comic, but
Yeah. I've never met
doesn't
him.
really play our circuit.
Wow. Was it Tom Dustin?
No,
The
he's
fighter.
in Florida.
Wow. Well, geez, yeah. No, I could see that going wrong. I mean, yeah, I could see it going wrong.
I'm assuming
But you gotta
everyone
be careful
has
up
seen.
there.
I'm assuming everyone has seen the famous guitar. I
Yeah,
forget the guy's name.
I have. Yeah,
There's-
I don't remember the name
guy
of it.
comes up. Yeah, guy comes up after the
Oh,
the comic. The comic hits him with the guitar.
yeah.
My favorite part is how he says, "You saw he was coming at me." So the woman he says, "That was unnecessary." That's my favorite part.
The classic boing of a guitar
Rick,
hitting somebody.
Have you ever seen the Who play the Smothers Brothers show?
No. I mean, I've seen the Who do what they normally do it after a performance.
So they did this on. They did My Generation on the
believe I
Smothers
have.
Brothers, and there was where they end it with they're all smashing their instruments, except for John Entwistle on the bass, who's like hugging his bass to his chest. And they had explosives rigged in Keith Moon's drum
Oh
set.
God.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
And I guess unbeknownst to someone, another fuse was added to the explosives, and you can see in the video Keith Moon jumps like he gets like exploded onto basically, and you can see him like run off the stage.
Yeah.
And
And I think-
Pete Townsend's like putting out some smoke, some.
They want
ash, whatever.
a Spinal Tap situation.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's the one where Townsend his eardrum blew out.
Yes, it is. It is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Because it was
Yeah, I've
so
definitely
close to
seen it.
him. Yeah. And whichever Smothers brother it was who came out after is visibly like, oh my God,
Yeah. Oh,
was
they're
very close to going very poorly.
yeah, they are really, really underrated. They were really, really good, and because they look so clean cut, they got away with murder.
Up
Yeah.
to a
I mean,
point
even-
though.
Oh, the
Even look
Who?
at-
Their show got shit canned. The
Yeah,
Smothers
even
brothers.
look at like the
Oh, the
even
Smothers
look at-
Brothers.
Yeah, even look at the Who during that time.
They did
yeah,
look
we-
pretty clean.
Yeah, when
cut.
you're young, you look at it, go like, yeah, we're busting up the guitars and we're doing everything. Now I'm almost 60, going like, well, what's the point of that?
Well,
know,
you
but
see,
you're musicians, play your song.
the point of it is that like when you
It's a perfectly
smash
good guitar.
a Fender guitar, everyone's like, "Whoa, that Fender can take a hit. Maybe I should buy a Fender."
Mm.
Speaking of which, I now have a Fender Passport, which is a huge.
Oh,
not
yeah.
huge, but like almost like a briefcase PA sound system complete. My friend Jennifer Hogue, who's been on Evening at the Improv and such, passed away 20 years ago. And when her husband cleaned out the house to move, he found that and a note that she had wanted me to have it.
Have you ever
Really?
thought about having a musician on stage, like during the act, like having a piano player with all the comics on stage?
That was the whole. When we started the club, I was like, "There's only a couple things I really want. I really want a green room. I really want to have a upright piano on the stage. That's like the old Improv. I really, really want that."
Hey, I mean, a keyboard's only like $50.
We hadn't been able to do it.
Keyboard's only like $50. You got your sound system now. You can just hook the keyboard up to that. And Brian Sullivan, who lives in Somerville, he's a big studio fan. He plays the piano pretty good.
Yeah. You got the you can get one of the old uprights for for free.
Yeah.
I just like the idea of it being there. It would take up space, but
a keyboard won't take up as much. A keyboard won't take up as much space.
Yeah.
You can make do with like a nice just. It's not. So I have one upstairs, but like a rectangular keyboard.
Or Zach Galifianakis, or someone who's just having a set that's not going well and they know how to play chopsticks. I mean, I like the idea of that being there for such purposes.
Hey, Boston Comedy Festival was this past weekend, wasn't it?
It was. The big winner, Liz Glazer.
Liz Glazer. Congratulations to Liz Glazer.
Congrats to Liz Glazer.
Number of our shows. You might have been confused that it was the Boston Comedy Festival because it was done in conjunction with Flappers. But still very cool. Congrats to Liz. Hard fought. I know Sam Rossi made the finals. What a nice thing for him that must have been to be so young and to have advanced so far. So good stuff.
Yeah, we had a number of our folks did well. This year there was a little bit of controversy because the judging was done entirely by audience vote rather than judges.
It's funny because that's the exact same system as Anthony Massa's show at Improv Boston, Battle Royale.
Oh yeah,
audience vote.
I recall there being controversy last year that the judging was done by judges. So
that's every year, isn't it?
Sounds like it can't win.
Well, the question is, who are the judges?
Right.
Well, here's the thing. Nothing in entertainment, nothing can ever be done right.
So it's essentially it came down to if you buy a ticket, you get a vote. So the person who can get the most people to buy tickets wins. Is the fear that comics said. Well, Gary Peterson did not make it out of the preliminaries, and he's arguably one of the top, at least one of the top half dozen who were in that contest.
Sorry, Gary. Maybe you'll be a good Boston comedian then.
96.
Sorry, Gary.
Arbitrary number. Well, I guess not if you're going by half dozens.
Yeah, I think it breaks down.
What is that? 12 times 9? Is that 9 rounds of 12?
I can't do math.
Right, there must be less. Yeah.
I just remember seeing the name number 9. Maybe they didn't actually go to that.
Well, hey, great. Glad that happened. Congrats to Liz and all of our friends. Yeah. Check that off your list. I had a nice time watching concerts all weekend. My favorite band, the Hold Steady, did some live stream shows from an empty venue, the Brooklyn Bowl in Brooklyn, and I loved it.
Yeah, as an audience member, you enjoyed.
I had a great time. I only bought tickets the first night because I thought, how much am I really going to like this? And then after that first night, I was like, well, I got to buy tickets to the last two now. That was incredible. What they did, it was cool. They had a Zoom room you could join, kind of like us. Maybe they stole the idea. I'm not going to say whether or not they did. But they had a Zoom room you could join, which we did on the last night. And what they did was they projected the people in the Zoom room on the screens above the bowling alley lanes in this venue. And it gave it a real sense of community, and people were encouraged to highlight their pets on camera, which led to us getting to see two turtles having sex.
Have you seen that? Have you ever seen that before?
I have, yes.
It's very funny because
very funny.
They go,
yeah. So it cut to someone Zoom, and it was turtles having sex. And did the Hold Steady put that on a T-shirt? Yes, they did. They're savvy businessmen.
That's good merch right there.
It is good merch. I'm not gonna get it because I feel uncomfortable wearing that in public because it's a turtle mounting another turtle. It's very clear what it is on the shirt. But it was a great time. I had a nice time. I think I even got Rosa into the band a little bit.
Yeah.
So
anything you think we could pick up that
more rock and
the
roll.
concert? Yeah, the concert did differently. The Zoom
Live
room.
music, I think, is what they did that we didn't do.
Yeah, so the advantage they had was they were all on the stage together. I mean, it was like a professionally, it sounded and looked great. They had like, 4 or 5 cameras that they'd cut to, clearly someone was at the board.
Yeah, so they're mixing
there are
on the fly.
limitations that we have,
Mhm.
being on Zoom exclusively.
Here's a fun little comment we just got. Jessie Nicole, who's been watching our podcast a bunch, Rick knows her, is apparently cousins with Sam Rossi and has not seen him perform yet.
Really?
Yeah.
He's good.
How about that?
Yeah.
He's good.
Yeah,
He's
one of those
great.
comics that has a couple jokes that you go, I'd like to tell you that, but I don't want to ruin it. It's like such a good joke that you want to do it.
Rick, did you like my Who Died jokes this weekend?
Yes, that was a lot of fun. Danny stepped in and did a little
Had a little
hosting
liquid
on the
courage
Comedy
after my
Studio
Hold
site.
Steady show.
I didn't think you were gonna follow through with that.
Yeah, it was very
down
funny.
for whatever. Wired
Especially
for sound and
because-
down for whatever. That's me.
Especially because the order of the comics was somewhat messed up,
Yes.
and so I said, okay,
Maybe a little
I'll
bit.
introduce the next act to get back on level. Danny comes on, introduces the wrong act.
Yes, but there were conflicting text messages. I had not seen the latest one, and I apologize. I'll take the fall for that one. That was on me.
I think that was the biggest laugh I had all week. Was
When I got it wrong.
yeah, when you got it wrong.
So not the joke, but the
Yeah,
hey, that's fair. I'm mean to you. You can be mean to me
Okay.
on the podcast only. This is a safe space to be mean to each other.
Boy, this
Boy,
is a
I
lot more
had
fun
fun.
than last week.
I thought last week's was fun too.
Yeah. Now with the Hold Steady, so the band members weren't socially distanced, and how was the sound quality?
It was amazing. It was
Are
like
those both true? Okay.
yeah. One of them was wearing a mask. All 3 nights, the bassist wore a mask. Galen. But yeah, they were on stage. There were 6 of them. At a certain point, they brought out 2 horn players, or a trumpeter and a saxophonist. So I assume there must have been some testing or
sort of-
quarantining or something. But
Yeah,
they're a
some
band, they're putting a new album out in a couple months. They announced they must have been, recording it
Yeah.
during the pandemic.
Before we get to our
So-
special guest, there was
Mhm.
one little thing I want to
Sure. Okay.
because as we all know, I'm in therapy. I've been going through a lot this whole year and everything, and I was just looking. I'm going to show everyone. This is my journal from 1 year ago, and you can see it's like one paragraph with big loopy lettering.
That
And
was
now,
another rough time one year.
and then there's my journal from today, which is like 8-point font every single square inch of the page. And I
Okay.
think it just graphically shows some of the change I've made.
You wanna go
Congratulations.
into the changes?
Adderall. No, yeah. So it's
Meth.
That'll do it, buddy. That'll do it.
I say it's essentially the 3 S's. I'm now sober, single, and on speed.
They teach you that at AA, do they?
Yes,
They
yes.
do,
But yeah, I want to thank
And that
thank you
fourth
guys
S.
and everyone around me for helping me get through a time when reading those journal entries from last year is like, boy, it was confusing.
What was confusing about it?
I haven't even figured that
well,
out yet.
I was in a relationship and I didn't know where I really stood. The business was trying
That's the
to
fourth
get it
S.
set, and I didn't know where it stood. I didn't know where the business was. I didn't know where I was. I was now I think I wasn't drinking. The drinking wasn't the cause, but it was definitely a symptom. There was so much going on, and I was so anxious and worked, and still doing 2 shows every weekend, 7 shows 7 days a week, and everything. And yeah, I think there was some using alcohol as a way of numbing and calming some of that
Well,
down.
I've never heard of that.
He says as he drinks his 20 ounce.
20,
Are there 20 ounces? Yeah.
18. The can is 24, but I'm going slow.
A Foster's. Oh my God, you're drinking Foster's?
Oh my God.
Who doesn't like Foster's? It's Australian for beer.
Come on.
Did the liquor store have a single sale?
I like this Foster's. It's the lager. I also like the ale, which is harder to find. It's the green can.
Mm.
They
But
have
there's
a,
just something about the size and shape of it where I'm like,
They-
all right.
They've got them at Blanchard's Liquors. I used to
Let's
stock
record a
those blues
podcast.
and greens all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Say, can I introduce our guest?
Yes, he is
Let-
just
let me
entered
know
the
when
waiting
it's
room.
time.
He's here. I'm gonna click admit, and you can introduce him.
Oh, okay. Well, I want to
Um,
introduce him with a
Take it away. 'cause it's
with,
time.
with a bit of a story. When the Hong Kong and we were not able to come to terms, the only people who knew about it was me and like 4 comics who were negotiating for me. And I mentioned it to Mark, and he put it in the Cambridge Day, so no one knew about it but me, Mark, and 4 comics. And just that little blurb saying the comedy studio is leaving the Hong Kong and looking for something. I got a call the next day from Bull Market, and that's what set this in motion. And yet last week when we were talking about the difficulty we're having staying open and keeping going, Mark immediately called and said, "Wow, the comedy studio is so important. What can I do? How can we help this?" So he's been a very important and influential friend throughout the years. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mark Levy.
Hello, Mark.
Welcome to the show, Mark.
That was an amazing introduction. Thank you.
A long time coming, some might say this is.
It's been in the making forever.
I mean, it's Rick really just did say it, so I'm being redundant. Welcome, Mark. How are you today?
I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm all right. Yeah, I don't know. It's the usual. I mean, everyone's going through the same thing, you know, trapped in the apartment and you know, a constantly moving target of when we get a vaccine and get to return to life. And
Yeah.
I think I'm doing a lot better than so many people, but you know, so it's very depressing in a very middle class, white privilege kind of a way.
Yeah, vaccine news looks good, numbers look bad. It's just, you know, whatever mood you have, you can find evidence for it.
I would say that accurately encompasses the vibe of our podcast. Trapped
Lately,
and
sure.
mildly depressing.
You see, though, this vaccine was with the Trump admin turned down buying more doses of the Pfizer vaccine. What the heck?
I saw a headline like that. What happened?
They bought 100 million doses, which is enough to inoculate 50 million people.
Yeah.
And then I guess Pfizer came to them and said, there's an opportunity to buy more if you want. And they said, nah, we're good. Who needs it? And now we can't get they're saying that the U.S. might not be able to get more of the Pfizer vaccine, which is just one of the 3, until like June. So we'll see how that.
Well, we're gonna see what happens to the UK
Plays with
because
things.
they're like starting distribution like nowish.
That's true. I saw on the TV those two someone named William Shakespeare got it.
Queen Elizabeth.
No, but the guy's name really was William Shakespeare.
Oh,
And just
okay.
look in his eyes. His eyes just screamed. I've heard this joke every day my whole life. That's baked into my face now. So, Mark, you are the founder of the Cambridge Day
I didn't
newspaper.
realize you were the founder.
Mm-hmm. Well, you didn't
Oh,
do
my
research
goodness.
like I do for every guest on every
Yes.
episode. of our podcast.
I'm just here to find stuff out.
How's the city changed since you found? When did you found the
When?
newspaper?
Well, everything in Cambridge is complicated, and so is that answer. I did a print edition in 2005. That was crazy. And then I hung on to the URL and I went off and did some other job stuff. And I came back, and in October 2009, I started posting. I revived the URL as an actual like website. I just wanted to learn about online news. And so it's, you know, a little over 10 years old, I guess you could say, kind of, unless it's more like a little over 15 years old.
So
Well,
you
we're
saw-
not Woody Allen, so we're not going to split hairs that way. Right, Rick? That was for you.
Thank you. So you saw like news moving to electronic and decided to do that 10 years ago?
Well, you know, when you were working in newsprint at that time, it was like, oh, this newsroom is shutting down, or oh, we're taking buyouts, and oh, there's going to be layoffs. And after a few of those, you start to think, maybe I should just jump into online news.
Yeah,
Like,
and I've
oh
got
my-
this URL.
Yeah.
That's
Where
what
were
we're
you
doing
before
with
that?
comedy.
Yeah, what was the day job?
Oh, at that time, I was, I think my last real print full-time day job was I was executive editor over a group of newspapers in central Connecticut, because I've always been more employable in Connecticut than in Massachusetts.
Well, they got more money.
They know
got
less
more
about me,
pizza.
but they're
Parts of it,
willing
too.
to hire me. And that company was sort of selling off assets, and then I went with the people that bought some of the papers, and I was pretty sure they were going to sack me, but they told me that they weren't, and then eventually they did.
Yeah.
They
Why
strung me
Cambridge?
along.
Why Cambridge?
Oh, well, I don't know. My brother had a house here, and I lived with him for a while. Cambridge is, I thought up through 2019, I thought Cambridge was great.
Well, it's just so complicated that you've got the school. Well, Goodwill Hunting points out, you've got the schools, you've got the really really poor neighborhoods, you got really really rich neighborhoods, you got politics that's just crazy because you have a city manager rather than a mayor. Well, rather than a powerful mayor. There's just so many weird little dramatic quirks in Cambridge that, like, if you had to pick a city to cover, either this or Peyton Place.
I thought it'd be really exciting to be in a place where, they were remaking the world every day. Between MIT and Harvard, you figure they're just messing up the world in really exciting ways, like every day.
Right about 2 blocks from where Danny was living, I believe there's 3 copies of the DNA for the Tyrannosaurus, is it? One of those famous old dinosaurs. There's 3 copies of the DNA.
Wow.
That for use for research, and 2 of them are within a block of where Danny lived.
Oh wow!
I knew I could sense
there's
that.
so much intense biochemic, high end stuff that just little neighborhood houses. You go like, oh yeah, that's where they could do Jurassic Park if they wanted.
I didn't realize Jurassic Park Island was based on Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Very well could be. Yeah. MIT has a nuclear reactor.
Mm-hmm.
That means that you've got campus security guarding 3 Mile Island.
MIT would be because Rosa used to work there. MIT would be our plan if there was ever, if shit went down and there was a nuke. We would hightail it to MIT and get in those tunnels. try our luck in the tunnels.
Yeah.
What was your nuke plan, Mark? You must have had a nuke plan.
I really never thought about it. I'm sort of a fatalist.
So just run out and just watch the fireworks and.
Us Levys are more of an open a bottle of wine and take it kind of apocalypse sort of.
Yeah, really just sort of like embrace it. Like, here comes the wave.
That's what the Grateful Dead were all about, right?
Yeah.
Run towards the city center.
Yeah, that was our pandemic thought a year ago. It's like, well, if there's a pandemic, I'll just sit back and enjoy the day off.
I play a lot of Fallout, but if that actually happened, I'd just take it immediately. I don't want to survive that.
Now, Eli, you and Mark are not related, I gather?
I don't think we are related, but there are a bunch of Levys that I don't know that I've met in Boston at this point.
And you very graciously extended an invitation to your family reunion to Mark.
Oh,
Mark,
absolutely,
are you
Mark.
going to take Eli up on that?
You are cordially invited to the Levy-Mitchell family reunion.
Down on paper, live on the Ultimate Hangout podcast.
It could be fun to wander around and just have people try to figure out how I'm connected.
Yes.
This is Mark.
Could you guys break down for me? Is there a difference between Levy and Levy, and what is it?
Oh.
Breaks.
Depends on what the other person decides to pronounce. My name's been pronounced wrong so many times. I've been even pronounced Levi, even though there's a Y at the end of my name. People are like, Levi.
I think it's the Eli that might.
Ellie. I've been called Ellie before, and I've never heard anyone spelled Eli called Ellie before. People just try it.
Meaning, if I see that spelling, it doesn't matter how I'm not insulting anyone by pronouncing it one way or the other.
Jews at this point are like, you did your best, so we appreciate that.
Okay. Because we have Dan Levy, who's a famous, a really good, famous local comedian, and Dan Levy, who's son of Eugene Levy. And that's the only way they have of
season.
That's the only way they have of distinguishing each other is a pronunciation, and apparently the Actors Guild is letting them do that.
Do you guys see that new Dan Levy movie?
They're allowing
the
them to do that.
Happiest Season.
I have.
It's good, but it's a bunch of toxic people in that movie. They're very mean to anyone who's different.
The characters or the actors?
The characters.
Okay.
The
I
actors.
don't want to spoil too much, but there were some moments where I was like, boy, they're being mean to this character or that character. So just watch it and keep that in mind. Mark, in addition to founding Cambridge Day, I see that you're a senior editor at the blog Cheapism.
True.
You're a frugal man, I take it.
I'm not actually.
A
That's a
twist.
very strange job for me to have. Um, they do a lot of talking about things like bargains and coupons and Walmart and things like that, and it doesn't connect with me at all. Um, I don't shop a lot, and when I do, finding I just sort of go in and I buy the thing, and I don't really think a lot about, am I saving 5% off or 10% off or something? I don't know. I feel very lucky to have that job. They're the best people in the world, and they're very forgiving of me and of what I
What?
do with the rest of my time.
Why would they need to be forgiving?
Because I think that there's a fiction that when you have a job, that job becomes everything about you, and
Mm.
you're very passionate about it, and you think about it all the time and put all your energy into it. And I came into the job with my loyalties a little split, where I
Yeah.
also had this other thing going on. And in large part, the job was about the flexible hours. And when that's your primary when that's one of the primary things about why you take a job, you're going in with, you know,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
cubism is not
Yeah,
going to be
I read
your
I read
life.
an article
Sure.
about the founder of Zappos, and what they used to do. I believe he got this from Amazon. He got it from some company. It's called the offer. And once you've been there for like 5 months, I think 5 or 6 months, they come up to you and go, basically you've passed the audition or whatever. You're there 5 or 6 months. They come up to you and say, um, doing fine. If you want to stay here, great. We're happy to have you. If you want to leave, we'll give you $5,000 now to quit. We'll give you a $5,000 bonus to leave and quit. The thinking being, if you're going to take that, you don't really have the commitment, the momentum, the enthusiasm for doing the job that they need in that company. And so people would just you do it. I think Amazon did it when they were starting, but
Ugh,
yeah,
I don't like that. Seems
it's
a bit
interesting idea. Yeah,
mind fucky for a shoe company.
kind of. Yeah,
I
you've worked here 6 months. We'll give you $1,000 to leave.
I don't know. I
It's $1,000 now.
Well, I think Amazon did
$1.
it as 1,000, but it was $5,000
Of course,
to
Amazon did it.
You
as
get a link
1,000.
to cheapisms.com coupon article, and you can. If,
You threw that in the chat, Eli.
no, I didn't. I will though.
Oh.
But
I thought that's what.
I gotta say, I've been watching so much MasterChef that I can't get enough of like mind games like that. Just like mental games like that. Just I'm
I would
obsessed
think
with
working for the comedy studio, you couldn't get enough. Of the
them. I got enough. I got enough.
You did get enough. That's
I
right.
did get
that's
enough.
true.
what percentage can I save off my grocery bill? What would be good? I usually check the circulars and check the ads and everything, and usually I can get. Usually I'm around 28-30%. But a good day would be 50, and a bad day would be like 12.
How
I don't
often?
even know how you do that.
Yeah. Well, how often do you? do
Ooh,
you
give me a
stock up
second. I'm
on
gonna read this
groceries?
article. Best gifts under $25. Give me one sec.
Well, how often do you get groceries, Rick?
I like twice a week. I'll go and get.
What was normally like what, 40, 50 bucks?
Yeah.
Cool. I was just curious. I don't have
Yeah.
anything to say. Mark, you're also. I did some research on you. Not gonna lie, did some
This is
research on you.
fascinating.
You're an advocate, and I appreciate this about you. You're an advocate for including the movie Iron Man 3 in the pantheon of Christmas classics.
Well, that's inarguable, isn't it? I mean, isn't everyone?
Thank you. You would be surprised, Mark. You would be surprised. A lot of people do not think kindly on Iron Man 3, don't even consider it to be a Christmas movie.
What's
When
the
it's
argument?
they don't like the movie, and they think it was too different from the other Iron Man movies, so they don't think about it.
But if it
But it's a
happens on Christmas, it is a Christmas
It
movie.
happens all. It's a Shane Black movie, and almost all of his movies happen on Christmas, except for The Nice Guys. But he puts a little epilogue in The Nice Guys, which is set at Christmas. So it's like a wink
That is
and
one
a
of my
nod.
favorite movies.
So I just saw that, and I said, you know what? I like this guy. I'm gonna invite him on my podcast.
I love Robert Downey Jr.'s hyperverbal Tony Stark, and it intersects really well with. I love superheroes who don't have any powers.
Yes.
Black Widow is my favorite among the Avengers because she
Really?
has no powers. And I remember I would get these random comic books and I'd deal with my orthodontist. And I remember that I wound up with a Green Lantern once. I was not a DC kid, but I wound up with this issue where Green Lantern's power ring had run out of charge and he was in some sort of wilderness and he was dragging himself through the Antarctic or something, like close to dying. And then he became snowblind.
Mm.
And this was like a great issue of a comic book to me because the superhero didn't have his powers.
Mm-hmm.
And so Iron Man 3, in which Tony Stark basically is just Tony Stark,
Yeah.
doesn't have the, the armor. I thought that was great. So
You're a
Ring
man
all
of
my
good
bells.
taste. What was that? I talked over you.
it rang all my bells. It was
I like that though. I like underdog movies like that, like where the stakes change. Because especially after two movies, what can you do story wise other than like change the stakes, make it so that he doesn't have like everything he had in the last two movies?
totally.
You bummed out about this Black Widow movie keeps getting pushed back?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was prepared to break my quarantine.
You
for
were
that.
going to go to the theater to see it.
Yeah.
Wow. That's I love these Marvel movies. I was not even prepared to do that.
You know, you can do that. You can actually rent out the Coolidge Corner Theater if you want to watch a movie there and just rent it out for a private
sure that's what
showing.
Mark was talking
I rode
about.
past there yesterday and they had to sign, you can rent us out for
Yeah,
private
I
viewings.
know AMC theaters were doing that. I think it's only like $100 and you get the theater for 2 hours.
$100. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
and it's
sad.
like you
One
and up
ticket
to
is
20 of your friends or
$14.50
something.
and to rent out the whole theater is $100. That's actually a
you-
great deal.
It's an amazing deal. I mean, that's what if you split it among your 20 friends, that's $5. That's less than a normal movie ticket. Do you know if you? I'm probably putting you on the spot, Rick. Do you know if you get to choose any movie you want, or do they have a slate of movies from which you have to pick?
I would assume it's whatever they've got running at that time, but yeah, I'm just assuming. The
Wow.
studios announced that they're going to start streaming movies the same day they release them to theaters.
Yeah, let's get into that. What do we think? Christopher Nolan's pissed off, but
Yeah.
in all fairness, it's kind of his fault.
I mean, I love the movie theater experience, but I would say AMC's one thing. I more so feel for like the smaller theaters like Coolidge Corner. Those are the cool experiences that do all the midnight showings. AMC, I like, except for like people losing their jobs, I could care less about like a corporation like that, to be honest.
But the little theaters weren't showing those first big. They weren't showing the new Christopher Nolan movie anyways.
I saw Joker at Coolidge Corner when it came out.
First run?
Yeah.
Oh.
It was great too. I saw it in the Coolidge Corner has that big the big theater that has like over 100 seats with the big red curtains. That was a great experience.
That's where I saw it at the Somerville Theater.
Yeah.
Davis
Mark,
Square
what's
Theater.
happening with the Brattle?
I'm obliged to mention that the Brattle also rents out. So for $100,
Ooh, I'm gonna
whatever
I'll put a
you
link
can
to
have
that.
The Brattle Theater.
No,
Yeah.
why are you obliged to mention it?
Because I'm a Cambridge Somerville booster. I'm
Okay.
all Cambridge, all Somerville, all the time.
I just didn't know if you had some financial stake in it.
I do like the Brattle a lot. That is a
Yeah,
great
who owns
place.
it now?
I think I do.
The Brattle?
Yeah,
It's a nonprofit. It's
it's a nonprofit.
its
Okay.
own thing.
I remember it used to be owned by like one of the Harvard professors or something. Got together with 3 or 4 people. That in the Casablanca.
There may be some
Yeah.
version of that. I'm actually not.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I should know that, but I
Oh,
don't.
no.
yeah,
We-
no, it could be completely wrong. It's just Casablanca was a really cool restaurant next to the Brattle that Bill Weld used to stop in regularly. When he was governor of Massachusetts, so that became a hip place for the preppy set.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Forgot about the preppies.
Just following anywhere, just
That's-
going anywhere the governor goes.
That's still the Harvard stereotype.
It's a dark stain in
It's a
our
dark
history.
period.
All right,
Speaking
just
of
shouted out the
Harvard
Brattle in the
stereotype,
comments.
how do we know how the Hong Kong is faring, Rick? Do you keep in touch with them or keep tabs on them?
No, they like many Cambridge restaurants. I know they're doing the outdoor dining, weather permitting. So those parking spaces we used to fight over in front are now used for tables. I believe it's just the, distance tables on the first floor. I don't think the second or third floor are open at all.
I'd imagine
There's-
takeout is.
Oh,
is-
yeah.
is yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure they're pretty much pandemic proof with their takeout business.
They're still doing karaoke though, right?
I would hope so.
Karaoke is COVID proof. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
As just specifically at the Hong Kong, if you get enough people in that second floor room, there's no COVID.
I think
There's just
herd
karaoke. There's just
immunity kicks
music.
in. Yeah. How did you get connected with Rick, Mark? I'd love to hear the origin story of you and Rick hooking up.
I don't think we really have hooked up.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, how did you
Overstatement.
find out about
Yeah,
the comedy studio?
Yeah, we've had beers once. Oh,
That counts.
I used to be able to go to a lot more comedy, and so it was only natural. And I was hanging out with more comedians, and so it was only natural to start, you know, to meet Rick, and he was, very kind, and so it's easy to get to know Rick. He's very nice.
Yeah.
I
How do you
think
feel about that, Rick? That it's
yeah.
easy to
Unless
get
you're
know
mean
you.
to me. If you're mean to me, then issues come up. I think you struck me. I think you were one of those people that was kind of deciding whether or not you wanted to try it. Like you were
Yeah.
hanging out with comics and going like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe I could.
Oh, you
I've
should.
never-
It's
thought of a
so much
couple things.
fun.
Have
I
you given it a
I've-
try yet?
no, there's no way. It wouldn't happen.
Why?
All that happened is that back when I was doing Cambridge Day as a print edition, I could relax on Thursday nights. And so I started going to the Improv Boston when it was in Inman Square and hanging out with the Walsh Brothers and their crowd.
Oh yeah.
And over time, that meant I started going to the Comedy Studio as well to see when people would perform there. So I was maybe hanging out with that crowd is an overstatement, but I loved that crew.
Yeah.
And so I got to see the start of Josh Gondelman and Sean Sullivan, and I got to wave goodbye to the Walsh Brothers, which is very sad. Mayron,
Yeah.
Shane Moss.
Yeah. Mike Kaplan. That was a pretty
Mike
cool
Kaplan.
pretty cool little era. Yeah. And I would say, think about stand up. We do classes at the Comedy Studio. If you go to our website, yeah, and I always think when people say, "Oh, I'd be too nervous, I couldn't do stand up or whatever," I've done it.
So
for me,
good
it's
at
like,
this,
"Oh yeah,
Rick.
no problem." We had a meeting that got a little intense yesterday, and afterwards, about 2 hours afterwards, I was literally shaking. That I had had so much adrenaline running during the meeting, and then talking to people afterwards, on the same business sort of stuff. That like 2 hours later, I was just and I could figure out, go like, oh, see, I'm such a wimp. I can't handle confrontation or, meetings or anything like that. And my sister pointed out, no, you're just crashing after all the adrenaline. It's like, I'd never thought of it that way. That must be part of what happens when people do stand up. To me, I don't get that huge adrenaline rush. So for me, it's just, it's handleable.
Oh, I'm sorry that you were shaking.
Well, it's just, like I said, it was adrenaline. And I think it's a lot like drinking. It's like that adrenaline and the alcohol is a huge, feel great for a few minutes, and then you spend another hour searching for something to regret.
Wow, very poetic words.
Thank you.
What kind of who are you guys, Mark? What kind of I've always wanted to ask Mark, spelled with a C, who his guys are.
In terms of comedy?
Mm-hmm.
Well, for again, I've had sort of this absence. So for local purposes, all those people that I mentioned, all those people that are probably in varying stages of not doing comedy anymore, except for Mike Kaplan, maybe a couple others, they're who I think of automatically. On the national stage, I was delighted a while back to share some John Mulaney with my mom.
Which the Kid Gorgeous?
Yeah, Comeback Kid. We went through a few of them over time. And obviously everything lately has been sort of Netflixy, so the last thing I watched was Nate.
I've heard wild things about it. Did you enjoy it?
I did. It was very impressive. Yeah, it's a really audacious show. and it must have been amazing live. And before that, I think the thing that I would mention is, and I'm going to blank on the name completely, but Ben Schwartz's Improv. That
Sonic
Netflix.
the Hedgehog. Yes.
He did
With Thomas
Schwartz and
Middleditch.
Middleditch.
Yes.
Pulled that out.
You did. You nailed it.
I thought those were pretty delightful, although I think the first of the three was, sort of head and shoulders above the other two for some reason. But all of those have been great for me to sort of like help get through the pandemic.
That's what comedy's there for. I was delighted to see you reference the Paul F. Tompkins bit about being sexually attracted to bees on Twitter from the Comedy Death Ray album.
That's true.
One of my favorites. That's a great album. All the greats in one 4-hour package.
Yeah.
You just killed my recommendation at the end of the show.
Oh no!
I was going to the Comedy Death Ray.
That's the sign of a real fan.
I'm so sorry. Hey, look, I do my search. Well, we've danced around this long enough. You wrote some reviews of us about the podcast in your fancy schmancy newspaper.
What happens with
Had some choice words to say.
it was the subject? Do you want to set up how the meeting went with?
Okay, I'll go.
Yes.
So, one of our coworkers, Brett, came in and said, "I read that review."
It was during a staff meeting, so it's
During
all
a
like,
staff
okay,
meeting,
everyone said, all right, we're all here. What does everyone want to bring up? Yeah, what's the agenda?
Goes into the Zoom room. I read that review. That was a bad review. He trashed us. I was like, no, he didn't, Brett. Shut up. It was a fine review. He had very fair points. He called us the Ultimate Hangout Podcast.
Any items for the agenda?
And
Yeah, we got ripped in the paper. What? All three of us were just like.
And I don't think I ever apologized to Brett because
Yeah.
I really snapped at him.
I don't think he said a single thing the rest of the meeting.
You went to his house, you
I
threw
got
bricks through his
visibly
window.
annoyed. So how do you feel now that you've fractured our whole team?
Like it comes out of fear and concern, which I know are not things that you should normally associate with comedy.
No, I can see that.
Let's hear it.
That's
It's not about the
accurate.
comedy. It's not about your comedy. It's about the comedy studio, and it's about fear. I mean,
Trashing its legacy.
No,
I'm
we're
talking
already
about
doing
Farmville
that.
already having lost 3 clubs.
Yeah.
Improv Boston is dark. It's giving up its lease in Central Square. I'm freaking out, and I want you to find a way to survive and thrive. And so, I mean, I don't know. I tend not to actually sort of trash things because I know that people are coming from good places. So it was meant to be sort of constructive. But
It was.
I
I
think
thought it
it's
genuinely
very, yeah.
was.
No, it was very helpful.
And I know we play it up that it was insulting. And even now I feel bad but how could I not bring it up? But I do want you to
There's
know
a big
that
chunk of-
we very much appreciated it. And it
There's a big chunk of humble brag in there.
Uninsulting.
Can you
Oh,
believe
yeah.
what all the press is talking about me?
Oh, I mean, we've spent 3 episodes now talking about it. We love
Humble
it.
brag coined
awesome.
by another studio alum.
Harris Whittles.
When Rick and I sat down that one time before the new comedy studio opened, and I remember being really upset because Vulture had just come out with a list of 50 comics to look out for. And it was all like LA, New York, Chicago, LA, New York, Chicago. And it's like, where's Boston? What happened? And I remember talking with him about this, and I don't know whether anyone else shares this point of view. I don't know whether anyone else has come away with this impression of Boston as a creative scene. But I think that Boston is a really supportive creative scene, and I think that may be the problem.
I would agree with that.
Where you have all of these scenes where it makes room for everybody. And what that means is that it's not cutthroat. And I also worry that that means that people don't develop as quickly or as sharply as they do in the scenes where it is cutthroat. So I don't know what the answer is, because I don't want the scene to not be supportive.
Mhm.
But by the same token, I had a period where I was very reluctant to talk about Improv Boston or to send people there, because maybe the only thing more excruciating than a bad open mic is bad improv.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the idea, like the sense that you're like, there's 3 people in the audience and 6 people up on stage,
Hmm.
and they're starters, and it just, it can take you years to recover from a scene like that.
Yeah, and those people have taken 3 levels of classes.
So, and,
Yeah,
and I remember going to a sketch night at Improv Boston, and it was presented, it was advertised and promoted as the best of the best. But actually, what it was 3 levels of sketch troops.
Mhm.
And the last one of the night was really good, and the middle one was okay, and the first one was like, they need work.
Mhm.
And so I felt a little bit conned, and I guess I sort of want a little more honesty in the scene, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know what the answer is.
as a gatekeeper, that's something I always sort of struggle with. We've been talking about, or even take a specific example. Someone like Sam Rossi is really, really good. He's 17. He's got some really good stuff. Or diversity. I really struggle with, okay, do I move him up quickly because he's good and let's give him more stage time, let's give him more opportunities? Or am I doing him a disservice by not making him go through all the hoops and the hanging out and the struggle? Am I helping a black comedian by promoting them because now I've got more diversity on that show? Or am I harming them by giving them a Saturday before they're ready? So I don't have an answer for that either, but those are the decisions I struggle with when I look at comic in residence, or especially auditions, when I'm auditioning Boston comics for outside gigs.
Very brave of you to just say that.
Well, I'm cool with it because you're the booker of the comedy studio.
Danny Hatch is the booker of the comedy studio. That is correct.
Yeah, I spent some time in New York before I moved to Boston, and what I noticed about, or
Yeah, you
I
did
guess
barking and everything.
I did barking and everything. It was a miserable time. But New York, the scene in New York was so huge. It was very cliquey, and there were a lot of different sub scenes. And I feel like in Boston, it's more of a sort of mono scene, where there are some offshoots here and there, but it's just so much smaller. It does feel more encouraging. I also noticed that when there is drama, it rebounds and ping pongs all over the place a lot more than it does in New York, because everyone is kind of dialed into the same shit here.
Yeah, the drama here is not like the drama in New York.
No, so it in many ways it is more welcoming, but in some ways, it can be a lot more toxic.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess lean more into the toxicity, guys.
We lean very heavily into the toxicity.
So how do you see the same Cambridge, Somerville communities after pandemic?
Well, I don't know that there is anything. I mean, I get the sense that everything has to be rebuilt, kind of. I mean, people will have left. People will have just sort of abandoned what they were doing. People won't have the time or the capacity to do what they were doing. I get the sense. I don't know. Part of my concern is that the infrastructure is just going to totally collapse, and the dream would be that everyone gets the vaccine and everything starts up again. But weren't you talking a couple of podcasts ago about sort of like a missing generation of people who aren't getting the stage time? And I don't know that Zoom comedy is going to keep going when there are stages to get back on, right?
I think it might, but
there might be some
reduced capacity.
It was interesting. A couple of our comedians were. I was texting, emailing them back and forth. that they were in the Boston Comedy Festival. And all of them, were like, "Oh, I wish it was judged so it was more of an honor or whatever." But a couple people who went on to the next round have never been on a live stage before.
Wow.
They've only done comedy via Zoom because 9 months is long enough to have your feet wet in comedy. So they've been doing comedy for 9 months, entered the festival, got in, moved from their Zoom audition to the Zoom show to the next level.
Seems like a totally different skill set. Did they bomb?
No, but that's what I said. They've never done it in person, so they only knew how to perform on Zoom. So
we'll find out if
they won.
bomb.
Yeah, they won the preliminaries, moved on to the
6
semifinals,
months.
and now if they go to if the Comedy Studio opens and they show up, it's going to be their first time on stage. Even though they have the credit of being a semifinalist.
It'll be a different experience for sure.
Semifinalist, asterisk.
It's kind of like being big on Twitter and then trying to translate that to the stage, but probably more intuitive because you're at least like live performing. Twitter is just farting off bullshit that might catch on or not.
Yeah, but it's comedy writing.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, but you can edit it before you post it.
that's true.
I mean,
Like comedy, you just say it and then see what happens.
You kind of need what Drew Barrymore has on her weird talk show. She's got the wall of faces, right? The wall of people. And I'm not quite sure how they mediate that. Like they're not muted, right? They can applaud.
I think they're open. Yeah.
Is this her
I'm not
audience?
sure.
I haven't seen her show. Huh.
Yeah. She has a giant video screen made up of, much smaller video screens. And those are all the people that are watching that she interacts with somehow. And she goes over and she basically performs to a wall of faces.
Oh, let's do that, Rick.
Well, there's talk of that. I mean,
Let's Drew that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Drew Barrymore, if you want to work for the Comedy Studio, the job is yours.
Early on, I was actually meaning to call Rick and ask, like, is there still heckling? Is there still crowd work in comedy when you're doing it on Zoom? And
There's a lot more crowd work, I think, actually.
yeah, there's a lot of crowd work, and I think that it's becoming hack already. What you're getting is comedians no one wants to sit in the front row of a comedy show because they're afraid they'll get picked on. They don't realize when you're on a Zoom show, not only is your name there, but they're in your living room. So now you have to worry about a comedian going, Bill Smith, I Googled you. You're from here, and you did that, and that's your kid is in the background, and it's.
And now I'm coming for you.
Yeah. So there's that. You have to worry about Zoom bombing, but
we've never really had
hasn't
that
happened
problem,
once
though,
yet. No.
with Zoom bombing, but I know that some shows have.
Yeah, the crowd work is still there, but it's a lot more awkward because it's a lot more personal, and the material, everything's 1 foot from the screen. So now when you're doing crowd work, it's not. Hey, you out there in the dark, where do you work? Now it's looking someone in the face 1 foot away and saying, so what do you do for a living?
Yeah, nice couch, asshole.
John Smith, I know where you work.
But no heckling.
You're getting up to go to the bathroom. Why are you going?
Have we ever had a heckler on these shows? I don't think we have.
I wouldn't say a heckler. We've definitely had some people just respond honestly to rhetorical questions asked during sets.
Sure.
Yeah, it depends. And my style tends to be kind of conversational that way. So yeah, I get a lot of people, feeling that it's comfortable to chime in or answer the question or ask for another joke.
Have you partaken in any watching any Zoom comedy, Mark?
Very little. Rick gave me access to a weekend. And I saw some very funny stuff. I can't remember names, unfortunately.
That's good. Don't let it go.
That's okay. We don't want to make him feel too good.
Just attribute it to Rick.
I remember one in particular where it was a New York comedian who was actually out on his stoop.
Oh, I think I remember that night.
Guess that's Andy Haynes.
Yes.
And it was a great set that he started out by talking about that his battery was about to die.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if that was just meant to add some level of creative tension to the set or what, but I thought that was it certainly increased my level of tension.
I think at one point in that set, his neighbors might have walked past him to get into the building.
Yeah. And I thought that was actually something sort of cool about Zoom comedy.
Yeah.
And I actually sort of preferred that to the sense of someone just sort of like sitting in a basement.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's a problem if you also are masked up, but the idea that you're still somewhere out in public and there's still some level of interaction. I don't know. I thought there was something good about that.
It was kind of awkward this weekend. I don't know how other people, I loved it, but Jordan Jensen, who's a very funny comedian, went to the Montreal Comedy Festival and such. She was at an LA or a New York artist loft, party, and she's with her phone trying to find somewhere that she could get. She finally ends up barricading herself in the bathroom, and people are like, "Hey, we need the bathroom. We have to do our meth." I was like, I thought that was like really, really cool.
No,
even though it wasn't like, here's tight material and here are my jokes. It was like, oh wow, I never get to go to an artist party in New York. This is great.
Yeah, it was cool. She was just perpetually walking through hallways, like telling jokes about like squirting and saying hi to people at the same time. She's like, "Hey, sorry about that." It was pretty good.
I like that.
No, it was funny.
And I really loved when Alex Edelman made his wife get out of the car so that he could do
Yeah, they were on a road trip in the middle of the day. He's like, "Can you leave now? I need the privacy of the car."
Side of the road. So yeah, that's what's nice about Zoom. The spontaneity of it.
Yeah, so I've become a fan. I didn't think I would like it at all. It is still difficult just in terms of banter with other comics because there's that little half-second delay between the audience hearing it and you hearing the other person and all that. So comedic timing is a lot more difficult and a little rough. But other than that, I really like the whole Zoom experience.
Good, because it's going to be the next number of months.
Can I ask you, you mentioned the toxicity here, and I was just wondering whether you were trying to imply that there was anything helpful in that toxicity or whether it was just sort of personal drama toxicity.
Oh, personal drama toxicity and just in the Boston comedy scene. But that's every comedy scene, and it's just for entertainment purposes. There's nothing constructive about it usually, unless it's like a comic like harming other people or being toxic, like or like shutting down rooms. Like there was a time where like somebody like was sneaking wine, like cans of wine, into another open mic, and so people were just trying to figure out who it was. But like things like that.
There's also people calling sex workers and sending them to.
That is still under deliberation.
Yeah.
Do
you think that helps, hurts, or is not a factor in the level of comedy?
I think it hurts.
It definitely hurts.
It distracts from it, and it at best it leads to inside jokes that audiences aren't going to get.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It just creates a divide in the comedy scene, and also it's illegal to do what happened.
But that one specifically.
But it's fun to follow it as it's happening. I mean,
it's gripping. Toxicity is gripping is the unfortunate part.
Rose has broken, I think, 2 of the Boston Comedian Facebook groups. Yeah. So it's always
any drama usually that's posted on the comedians' pages is usually not important drama. It's usually just shit posting, as it's called.
Yeah, the difference is that back when you started on the scene, Mark, there was just one focus. It was the Comedy Studio Kvetch board was the only place comedians talked at all. Now it's diffused among dozens of Facebook groups and email chains and all that sort of stuff. It used to be all the toxicity was in one place. Now you have no idea where it is.
Were you ever a part of the fabled Kvetch board, Mark? Did you ever stop by there? No.
No. There was a time when I was sort of monitoring, and Sean Sullivan got really angry with me because I was because it became sort of a reporting tool. If I saw something interesting there and I wanted to follow up on it, Sean felt that comedians' privacy was being invaded. It's the same problem I still have if I'm a part of like a neighborhood email list. It's like being on Nextdoor, right?
Oh yeah, I'm on that.
People have more of a sense of privacy because they think that they're just emailing within a group. And so anytime they become aware that there's a reporter, it's maybe a little bit inhibiting, or they get defensive, and I don't know, just another
Sure.
level.
Well,
They
much
call you
like
the
with-
enemy, like in Almost Famous.
Well, and bringing it full circle, that that's how we started. Is like, Danny, how much do you feel comfortable putting out there on a personal level, knowing that it's public?
Right. And that's always like a weird tension with people who are public and talk about like amazing, like wild things publicly that most people would never imagine airing. And then from the outside, you feel like you know something about that person. And when they're off the stage, it's very weird for them to be approached by people who think that they know them.
Yeah. Oh,
They
I know
believe
you
that a
squirt.
rapport has
What?
been established. Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I mean,
That's happened.
and yeah, you sort of, as a person who watches theater or comedy or something, you have to be aware of that. You don't know these people, and you also, it's helpful to be reminded that you have no idea if what they're saying on stage is anything relating to truth.
Yeah.
I mean, comics might talk about their girlfriend or boyfriend that's imaginary, or family members who are imaginary or exaggerated. The David Sedaris problem, I guess.
But where you would just want to fire people on the spot? Is that the David Sedaris problem? Ah, very topical.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with this
Oh, really?
syndrome.
What I said or what Mark
Syndrome.
said?
I know Amy Sedaris is his sister and such, but I didn't know that he.
Oh, there's just a couple different things wrapped up here. I
Opposites.
mean, the older thing is just that David Sedaris' family could get really upset about what he was airing, which meant that apparently like a fair amount of it was true, whereas I always assumed that it was just sort of comic exaggeration. But the more recent thing, Danny can talk to. David Sedaris did a bit on.
He released a video where he's advocating for, how there's citizens arrest.
Yeah.
He thinks there should be citizens firing. So if you see someone in a service job not performing up to your standards,
Oh, okay.
you could just fire them on the spot. And surprise, it did not go over well in December 2020 with
No.
the internet.
Yeah.
That's
So it was a bit that went wrong.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was all over Twitter yesterday, maybe. Yesterday or the day before.
It's always all over Twitter.
Well, a lot of people, Marin has that problem. That it was like, oh, I'm putting everything out there, and now he's got, and then he had some real serious tragedy, and all of a sudden it becomes, well, am I still just this open wound, or do I need to cover up to protect myself and my family while we heal?
Dan Harmon also. Dan Harmon started out Harmontown as being like totally explicit and totally open, and his family was extremely upset, and so that was like one level of shutdown. And then over time, as Harmon just experienced the toxicity of social media, he just retracted more and more and didn't want to be open at all. And toward the end, there were Harmontowns where like they would just go on for 2 hours about like how awful it is to be a celebrity on Twitter.
Relatable.
Good
You
job,
must
Twitter.
admit.
That's what you wanted. Now you got it.
Yeah, exactly. You want to be a celebrity. You want to put yourself out there thinking everyone's going to go, oh, wow, you're wonderful. It's like, yeah, it's reality TV. You want to be the star. You want everyone to pay attention to you, and you're human. So they pay attention to all of you. And that might not be all of what you want to show or even be aware of. People can be pointing out stuff about you that I never occurred to me yet. Yeah, I guess I do that. Yeah.
I think that the thing I worry about in terms of that, the lost generation of comedy that you were referring to, is that isn't most of the communication going on now, if there's communication, I'm just guessing just by the nature of the medium, it's going to be critiques, right?
Yeah.
How are more experienced comedians guiding new comedians?
Yeah.
Like, is anyone in touch to say, to go over a set?
Yeah, there's
outside
a
of your
lot of
costume,
echo
right?
chamber. We do have a comedian's workroom at the Comedy Studio. Enrollment is starting now if you go to our website. There's some of that, but I mean, a lot of stuff is like, Goldman tips were great. Gary Goldman gave a different tip to a comedian every day for a year. And you can see those on Vulture because I mentioned as a great teacher. Um, but yeah, it's a lot more difficult because you don't know who you should listen to. Who is a veteran. You know, no one's done Zoom before. You know,
Well, I mean, like
but
navigating Zoom comedy, sure, but like in general, I mean, comedians help comedians out for the most part. I think, or at least from what I've seen.
yeah, it's just right now. You used to be able to 9 months ago. You could go to the Comedy Studios open mic, do a set, and ask me for some notes, and I'd give you some thoughts or ideas. And another comic might say, "Hey, well, here's an idea for a tag on that," and you might see a comic and say, "Oh, hey, I know you're booking this thing in Nashua, where I can get some extra time." You don't have that now. It's just everything's through the screen, and it's all an echo chamber of
Well, I mean, until recently, there were all the outdoor show
good versus
circuits.
bad.
There are the outdoor show circuits, outdoor open mics. Rhode Island indoor open mics, whether you like them or not. People were going to them and doing the same thing that they were doing before the pandemic.
Yeah, I just
So
don't
there's
think
still a
as
lot of
much
that.
is being shared.
So Rhode Island had a big indoor comedy scene this past summer.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say big, but yeah, they were doing indoor
Rhode
open
Island.
mics, indoor shows. That's why their hospitals are at capacity right now.
Yeah, what is
comedians
with
doing
Rhode Island?
screenshots.
I don't understand. Like Rhode Island, you'd think that after the station fire,
Hmm.
they would have sort of absorbed, the whole
Public
idea of
health.
like safety first in the creative arts.
Yeah, you would have.
You'd think.
Unless,
we can say.
unless it's all a hoax.
The station fire or the pandemic?
The pandemic.
Yeah.
The station fire.
We had to
hoax.
listen to audio clips of that for our floor manager.
Oh yeah, we did.
As a reminder of this is what happens if you fuck around.
Audio clips of the station fire?
Yeah, so you had to take a test online
Fire
to get like
safety
crowd
course.
manager certification. And it was sort of built around the station fire, basically like using what happened there as a template for what not to do. And there was one section where you had to listen to audio of like people screaming and
That's
like it was pretty awful.
They also used the San Francisco warehouse fire too as an example.
And then there's a documentary called The Collective that is about how that happened.
Oh, yeah?
I can't remember what country I think 3 of the 4 band members even died in that. But like the station fire was not a one-off apparently.
Yeah. Well, I read the book by the lawyers, and it's really interesting because I would have done much of the same thing.
Well,
Well, the neighbor
Open
next
and
door was
honest,
complaining
baby.
about the sound. Neighbors next door was complaining about the sound, so the owner went out and got some of that black styrofoam cushy sort of stuff and nailed it up on the walls to dampen the sound. And the stuff he got was flame retardant, not flame proof, which meant that it didn't catch fire, it melted, and the fumes were toxic. So I could totally see me going like, all right, fine, I'll make it quiet, I'll nail some of this stuff up.
But you
And that-
didn't do that.
That cloud was what
Nope.
ended up killing people. It wasn't the fire, it was the fact that you couldn't breathe because this tar-like substance was filled in the air.
we did have a fire alarm scare at the studio one time, and we had to evacuate people. But we did it pretty good. It was like pretty close after all the staff got trained, so we did a pretty good job evacuating people.
Yeah, Rick, I think you're not giving yourself enough credit here because you did.
I would have killed people, sure.
No, you built a new comedy club with that. Then after the station fire,
Yes.
and you didn't use you used fire rated everything.
I mean, we had
That's
a
it.
lot of conversations about it.
Yes.
I think I trust our regulators to make sure that you have to, whereas now I'm pretty sure that in Rhode Island they might not even have regulations. Because
Yeah,
if
just
ever there was a state that
But they
needed to-
do have half-off chicken tenders, baby.
What it's all about.
But it's like you
we're-
can't be at the bar. You have to be 6 feet apart. But then you have a camera. A comic with their phone looks around, and of course everyone's gonna walk to the bar. And for Thanksgiving, there were only 6 people there, and most had been tested, and everyone's like, okay, I'm safe or whatever. But yeah, by 2-3 hours, it's hey, pass the peas. A couple hours, you forget about it. You go to the bar and ask the bartender for a drink. You shake hands with the comic coming off stage. It's just naturally going to happen.
Rhode Island, pass the peas.
We're coming up on the end of this episode. What a solid episode this
Time has
was.
flown by.
It has flown by. We're almost at an hour and a half.
That was good.
Always a good sign. Mark, you know the deal how we end these episodes, so we're gonna just jump right in with Rick giving a comedy recommendation and a local business recommendation. Let's hear what you got, Rick. We always
Okay.
start with you.
Local business recommendation, I'll go with Anna's Taqueria in Porter Square.
Hell yeah.
They're very, very good, but just off over onto Somerville Ave, so they don't get the walk-by traffic of the mall or anything. So one of those places that really good, and you may forget about it.
Great.
And the comic recommendation, I'm going to go with Jerry Seinfeld's book. Even if you don't buy it, just look at it. Or Porter Square Books would be a great place to get it. But he lays it out almost like poetry. So each sentence isn't a joke, but each sentence is funny, moving the story along. And last night at the Angela Sawyer's open mic and tonight at Rob Preen's open mic, I wrote a bit specifically trying to do it in that style. Because I know it's a lot of the young comedians that we have at our classes at the Comedy Studio from the webpage are writing more in that style. So I said, all right, let me try and write a piece of comedy in an entirely different style than I'm used to. And it was really interesting. So I would recommend take a look at Jerry Seinfeld and how he uses each sentence to move the story along.
Great.
Very nice.
I would like to recommend as a local Bethesda restaurant, Momo's. It's a Korean barbecue restaurant. We had dinner there last night. Very good. Gotta love that chicken. So anyone in Bethesda listening, check out Momo's. And for my comedy recommendation, it's a show that I had seen before, but now I'm rewatching it with Rosa. You can find it on Netflix. It's called Dairy Girls. It's about 4 Irish teenagers who live in Ireland, and well, of course they, but they live in the mid '90s, towards the end of the Troubles, and it's really funny. There's some bittersweet moments. Great stuff. Dairy Girls. It's a feel good,
Great things.
Feel good half hour of television comedy. What say you, Mark?
Well, you know where I'm going with my comedy recommendation. It's that Comedy Death Ray double album from 2007.
I'm very sorry for spoiling it.
That's fine. It has such amazing offbeat stuff on there. They give like Paul F. Tompkins and Maria Bamford both get like 16 minutes or something for their sets.
Yeah.
I thought the Paul F. Tompkins bit was weird. I don't know why they included the bee thing. I felt like his set was like so amazing for that first stretch, and then they threw on the bee thing. I was like, that's an interesting choice.
Yeah.
But the album is full of that weird off-kilter stuff. Andy Daly and Jimmy Pardo, some early.
Yeah, Jimmy Pardo has some really raunchy stuff in there with an audience member.
Yeah, and some of it was from I guess a 12-hour marathon, like a Comedy Death Ray marathon. And so I think that there's some. It's Jimmy Pardo and someone else like going back and forth, and you could like really hear the fatigue in their voice, but it is hilarious. Yeah, just the amazing set is just a great album.
Yeah, I can definitely co-sign that. It's very, very funny.
Yeah, we did some promo for that. I've got a poster somewhere.
That's right, you did. I remember seeing the poster.
And for local business, I'm gonna go broad. There's a winter market called Popportunity that's in Central Square every Saturday and Sunday. And so there's a lot of small businesses and artists and I think even some food. And so you can go there and do all your holiday shopping. And
Yeah, whereabouts is that?
What's that?
Whereabouts is that?
It's in the Starlight Square, sort of. If you walk into Central and walk down Graffiti Alley,
yeah,
straight to Starlight Square and Popportunity.
Yeah.
We were sad we never got to see. We moved right as that was being erected. We never got to really see it.
Although we can give a shout out that the architects and the movers and shakers behind doing that are Matt and Zach, who also did Bow Market with us.
Great.
They sure did. Nice guys.
All right. Well, take us home, Eli.
My local business, I'm going to give another shout out to local movie theaters like the Coolidge Corner Theater and the Brattle Theater. If you can, if it's really $100, I mean, shit, you should go and rent that out and watch movies the good old fashioned way. And wherever you are, I'm sure you have a local theater that, if they're not doing the same thing, just ask them. I'm sure they're going to want your money to do that. So I would definitely recommend reaching out and supporting local movie theaters. And then for my comedy recommendation, I think I am going to give a shout out once again to one of my favorite movies that Danny mentioned earlier. The Nice Guys is a great, hilarious movie. with one of the best actor pair-ups of all time, I think.
And features the Comedy Store
It does.
in it. So you would
The
like
Boston Comedy Store.
Boston Comedy
The
Store.
Boston Comedy Store.
You wouldn't like the violence in it, Rick, but you would like the one scene that takes place.
I've never seen Ryan Gosling be that funny before.
Oh,
he
he's
was great.
hilarious. Yeah, great stuff. Shane Black, he's got a pretty good track record. Well, Mark, thank you so much for joining us. This was really nice. I hope you had a nice time. Cambridge Day and Cheapism. People can find your work. Is there anywhere else you'd like our listeners to go to learn more about you?
What's the URL for Cambridge Day?
CambridgeDay.com.
Yeah.
It's simple. Thank you all for having me, and it has been great.
Well, you take care, and that goes to Eli and Rick as well. All right.
You too, Danny.
Goodbye. Oh, thank you very much. All right. Goodbye, everyone. We'll
Good
talk
night.
to you next week.
Bye, guys.
Ooh, pizza's here.